Hello, I am Michael McGinnis. For this project, I chose Sidney Brenner, a South African geneticist who is one of the fathers of genetics as we know it, as well as a lifelong scientist, learner, and educator. Brenner was born on January 13th, 1927, in Germiston, South Africa, to Leah and Morris Brenner. His mother and father were Jewish immigrants from Latvia and Lithuania, respectively. He had one sister named Phyllis. Brenner grew up a poor cobbler's son, and neither of his parents could read or write. Luckily, a neighbor taught him how to read at a young age. When his parents noticed him reading newspapers on his own at age 4, they knew that they needed to invest in his education. With the aid of some money gathered by his town, he attended the University of Witwatersrand at the age of 15, where he began his preliminary studies for medical school with a focus on anatomy and physiology. While he was in college, it became evident that since he entered university at such a young age, he would not be old enough to practice medicine when he graduated. For this reason, he began to focus on cytogenetics, the study of how chromosomes affect cell behavior. After college, he was accepted into Oxford to pursue a PhD in physical chemistry. While in England, he met his wife, May, a fellow South African. She had a son from a previous marriage, and they had 3 children of their own. By all accounts, Brenner was a very charismatic man with a unique spark for life. He seemed to be very aware of the fact that he owed the world a great deal for what he was given. He knew that his passion for his work could distance him from his family, but he did his best to be a father and husband. In April 1953, a friend told him about the model of DNA that James Watson and Francis Crick had created. Brenner was one of the first to see this model, and he said that this completely changed the trajectory of his career. After leaving Oxford in 1954, he traveled between South Africa, America, and England for a short time, talking to many different intellectuals. He accepted a position at the Cavendish Library in Cambridge in 1956. At Cambridge, he was reunited with his old friend Francis Crick, where they spent 20 years sharing countless genetic theories as well as an office. Both were interested in the genetic code and its intricacies. In 1960, observing that mutations correlated with the change in the amino acid sequence, he wanted to know how this information was transferred between DNA and protein. After a series of experiments, messenger RNA was first described. One of the cornerstone moments of his time at Cambridge was the Crick-Brenner et al. Experiment of 1961. In this experiment, they used bacteriophages as a mean to insert or delete bases. This led to the discovery of the triplet nature of the genetic code. Another major interest that Brenner pursued throughout his career was the use of C. elegans as a model organism. These organisms matched Brenner's ideal as they were lab-friendly, small enough to view in a microscope, and had fewer neurons than a fruit fly. He observed some of the phenotypes that these organisms displayed, and by crossing different types, he mapped out these genes and found 96 loci on 6 different linkage groups, matching the known number of chromosomes. Another model organism that Brenner was intrigued by was the Japanese pufferfish. He found that these fish have the same number of genes as a human, but without all the redundancies and junk DNA that the human genome contains, making sequencing much easier. Brenner was a lifelong smoker, and his health began to decline with age, and winters in England became too much to bear. He was given part-time work at the Scripps Institute in Southern California, where he discovered a new passion for chemistry. Between 1994 and 2000, Brenner wrote a column for Current Biology called Loose Ends. During this time, he became well known for his wit, humor, and general enthusiasm for science. He was given the name of Uncle Sid by his fans. Two of his greatest practical contributions to the scientific world was the foundation of two research institutes in Asia: the Institute for Molecular and Cell Biology in Singapore and the Okinawa Institute for Science and Technology in Japan. After his wife of 58 years died in 2010, he began to live a more sedentary life in Singapore, which was increased by the decline of his own health, which made airline travel almost impossible. Despite his failing health, Brenner continued to make speeches and write until the very end. Brenner succumbed to his lifelong respiratory problems on April 5th, 2019, at age 92. He is survived by his three children. In conclusion, Sidney Brenner was an amazing scientist and a beautiful spirit. He shared his love for what he did with the world in any way he could, from inspiring common people with his approachable language to directly overseeing some of the greatest discoveries of the 20th century. This concludes my presentation. Thank you so much for watching.